a 10-hour long video. So, general build stuff. What character should you use? Use whatever you're most comfortable with, but if you're here asking the question, what character should I do this on? I'm gonna recommend Well of Radiance Warlock. They have the highest survivability out of any of the classes, and during the final boss fight, they're the only class that can sit still and do optimal damage. So if you just want this to be as easy as possible, you're equally as comfortable on every character, Well of Radiance Warlock, here's my build. Nothing here is super important, but yeah, Healing Rift, Touch of Flame, Icarus Dash, I think these are all things that make it a little bit easier. And here's my fragments too. I don't remember what any of them do. I don't even know if this is a good build. It has been months since I've worried about any of that. I'm using Starfire Protocol with fusion nades, makes ad clear, really, really easy, and also helps do damage on the final boss. I would recommend having 10 resilience. That is actually kind of mandatory at this point, and as much discipline and recovery as possible. And then here's my build. I'm using a Well of Light build, so I'm killing things with Wither Horde. It's generating wells with Explosive Well Maker. Those heal me. So pretty much this entire build is just geared towards me being as unkillable as possible, which is very important for a solo flawless challenge. Now, what are things that are necessary? I would say these two mods. Weekend Clear and Solo Operative. You can unlock them from your artifact starting at level 42. In your season pass. That's when you can unlock both of them at the same time. Do not do this unless you are just like a masochist until you have both of these unlocked. Weekend Clear makes you do 15% more damage to bosses when Wither Horde hits them, or when any grenade launcher, but Wither Horde in our case. And Solo Operative makes you do 15% more damage always. So these are two very, very important mods that I would recommend. Hello, Post Scarrow. I'm in edit mode or whatever. I forgot to mention your light level. You should at least be 1591. Past the 1590 delta is going to make this a lot easier, but obviously the higher your light level, the more easy this challenge is going to be. So if you can get up to 30 billion, go ahead and do that. More power to you. And yeah, so weapons, we'll go through it as I go through the encounters. For the very first two encounters, this is what I was using. Fatebringer, any primary works. Forbearance, I crutch the hell out of Forbearance. Anyone that knows this channel knows that. It heals you. It is the best ad clear in the entire game. It is the perfect weapon for the first encounter, or like the opening encounter, as well as the Ascent the Spire encounter. So I would recommend that, and then a sword for traversal. Now, for the very first encounter, my recommendations is just take your time. This entire dungeon is predicated on patience. None of the mechanics are that difficult, and it's not like a very technically challenging dungeon, but it does require a lot of patience, and this first encounter is no different. So the one thing I would recommend, you can practice this all you want, it's at the very beginning. Do not shoot any of the final nodes in any of the 4 lines. So in this first encounter, you have to connect 4 nodes front to back, whatever the hell you wanted to call them. But in the very center of the arena, there are 4 final nodes. And when you're done with the line, you can shoot that and you complete that line or that circuit. Do not shoot the last one until you're ready to shoot all 4 of the last ones, because as soon as you shoot one, supplicants start to spawn and they make this encounter a lot harder. So if you complete all 4 of the lines to their penultimate node, and then you shoot all 4 in the center at the exact same time, you will save yourself a lot of hassle and you will make this a lot safer and a lot easier. So that's my recommendation there. For the jump puzzle, take your time. If you know how to well skate, you can of course just skip it, but if I would not recommend learning how to do that here. Just take your time. Take your time, no big deal. For the Ascend the Spire encounter, same thing. I don't really have any tricks for this encounter. Take your time, make sure you're safe. If it takes an extra 2 minutes, who cares? There's no time limits here and you will be perfectly. Now, for the very first boss, the Garden of Salvation Harpy, this is where things start to change, and it does get a little bit harder, and in my opinion, this is probably the hardest encounter in the solo. So if you can learn how to do this efficiently, it's only a matter of time until you can. So I would recommend using Wither Horde. I use Akelous mini tool, but any primary weapon here will work, and then Cataclysmic. And once again, any linear fusion will work. I'm just using Cataclysmic because I'm trying to stack it with Font of Might with my solar subclass to make me do a little bit more damage. Now, tips for this encounter. Number 1, once again, patience is absolutely key. You're probably going to have to do 5 or 6 damage phases. With my build going absolutely optimal at my light, you can do 4. But, you know, more than likely you're going to have to do quite a few damage phases. There's absolutely no rush. Take your time. Make sure you are ad clearing. Now, we are using Cataclysmic, so make sure you are using your respective Finder and Scavenger mods. So make sure you have Linear Fusion Ammo, Finder, and Scavs on. Because these make it consistently spawn. So like as you are killing X amount of enemies with Finders, you are pretty much guaranteed to get heavy to spawn. That's a very simplified way of how it works, but that is indeed essentially how it works. So if you have a Finder on, make sure you're spamming Wither Horde and you're killing groups of enemies and you're keeping your heavy ammo production up, because this is a very long encounter. The boss has a lot of health, which means you're going to need a lot of ammo. Now, my pretty much like number one tip as you're going through this, I guess it's my third one, but I think it's the biggest one that people are going to overlook, is make sure you are clearing the harpies. They will absolutely melt you, and kind of even more importantly, they will absolutely destroy your damage phase by flinching the hell out of you. So as you are rotating around the Spire and you are doing all 4 of the circuits, just take out the harpies. A single fusion grenade will take care of them, especially with Touch of Flame. You can use Wither Horde, you can just shoot them down, you can use your Celestial Fire melee. Whatever you do, make sure you are keeping them under control. I also recommend doing this with the rest of the ads. Now, if you're trying to take advantage of Font of Might, you're going to need enemies to spawn solar wells where you are doing damage. I would recommend shooting the heads off of a couple goblins, letting them chase you around the arena, and then hopefully by the time you're ready to plant your well and start doing damage, they'll be right in front of you. You can throw a grenade or your melee, spawn a couple solar wells, and then do your increased damage with Cataclysmic. That's absolutely not necessary. That is being as optimal as possible, but it is a little tip that can help this go a little bit more smoothly for you guys. Now, once you complete the 4 sides, go ahead, put down a well, shoot all the eyes, and then you can start doing damage. A couple of notes here. Your damage phase is entirely predicated on how quickly you do eyes. You have a set amount of time to shoot the eyes and do damage. So if you take longer to shoot and destroy all of the eyes, you will have less time to do damage. So keep that in mind. Try to be as efficient as possible here. And then when you shoot your Wither Horde shots, make sure you hit the center eye or else it'll go right through the boss. And there's 2 reasons you're hitting Wither Horde. One, so you can activate bait and switch on your Cataclysmic. If you're not using that, I highly recommend you do. But if you don't have one or you're not interested in going to get one, that doesn't really matter. But why it does matter to pretty much everyone is because you are using Weakened Clear and you need to hit the boss in order to do 15% more of damage to that boss. So destroy all the eyes, switch your Wither Horde, shoot the eye, switch to Cataclysmic, and then just absolutely unload. And that is pretty much going to be the damage phase. And that's kind of just rinse and repeat until you finish this boss. It's pretty simple, but it does get a little bit chaotic, so make sure you are taking your time. Now, as you're traversing between the first and second boss, I wouldn't really, I don't really have a lot of tips here. Take your time, don't get killed by the fans. You can sit up top and destroy the enemies from the rooms where you have to shoot all the nodes. But other than that, it's pretty simple. The final boss. A lot of people are going to have trouble with this final boss because once again, it requires you to be very, very, very patient. What you're going to want to use is pretty much the same thing we were using, Wither Horde, some primary weapon. And then I would recommend a rocket. I'm using this hothead. I think this is one of the best things you can use for this, but it's really up to you. And then of course, you're gonna wanna switch your scavengers and your finders over to rockets as well. For the same reason as before, this is a very long boss fight and you're going to be, going through a lot of ammo. So you need to make sure you have enough to sustain your damage throughout the different damage phases. So the number one thing I'm going to recommend here that almost no one is going to do initially is make sure you are ad clearing from the other room, not the room where you spawn, the other room. Now, when you first start the encounter, you're going to notice the doors going in between are closed, but as you wait a couple of seconds, you start to kill things, those doors will open, and I recommend you immediately go in there. There are much fewer ads in this room. In fact, almost no ads go in this room, and it allows you to get away from the boss, take your time, and start whittling away at the 2 hydras that spawn. You could use Wither Horde, take down their shields, and after you kill the wyverns, you could just start shooting down Wither Hordes and using, I prefer, grenades to take down the minotaurs because it's really fast. Now, the premise of this room or this boss fight is you essentially are going to have to kite the boss from one side to the other to make room for you on the opposite side. And so I'll kind of stick around like the right side. I'll throw a grenade, I'll kill the minotaur, I'll be shooting stuff at the ads. As soon as I see the boss, I will run over to the left, I'll use a grenade to quickly kill the minotaur, I will take his buff, I'll shoot the red nodes to close or open the middle door, and then I'll start to explore and flesh out the yellow nodes. Once you get to this point, it's pretty simple. The most dangerous thing is going to be the supplicants. So make sure you're staying in the air. If you have Icarus Dash, this is going to be absolutely imperative to getting away from them very quickly as they're exploding, and just make sure you're staying as airborne as possible and keeping distance between you and the boss. You and the boss should almost always be on opposite sides of the room, so keep rotating constantly. Make sure you're shooting things in the air. If supplicants are getting too close, Wither Horde is a great deterrent. You shoot on the ground and it will either kill them or stop them from running at you. So this is a great skill to learn, is just using your Wither Horde to guide the enemies, because it's very rare that they'll just walk right through it, and if they do, they'll just die. Then make sure you are being very careful, completing your circuits. Make sure you memorize the circuit patterns. That's very important. And then it's just kind of time to do damage. And so when you do damage, I like to stand in the middle of the platform, kind of in the middle of the room. But off to the left side, there's this little jut, and I like to put my well behind that, so I have something to kind of crouch behind if I get overwhelmed. Now, as the door opens, your well should already be down. You should try to place that as close to the door opening as possible. You're going to shoot a Wither Horde, you're going to throw a grenade, and then you're going to go shoot your rockets. So I'm using a rocket with 2 rockets in the mag because of clown cartridge. And so I'll shoot like rocket, rocket, grenade, reload, rocket, rocket, grenade, reapply Wither Horde, grenade. And you just want to be using your grenade as much as possible in between these, because you have Starfire Protocol on, or you should have Starfire Protocol on. You're getting your grenades back as you do damage. Wither Horde is constantly weakening the boss, and your rocket launcher or hothead or whatever you're using is doing the most of your damage. And so you just keep kind of cycling between these 3 things, doing a lot of damage. The well should last the entire damage phase, and the boss is not able to kill you through the well, and he shouldn't destroy the well. It's never happened to me. Once the boss goes immune, very quickly get out of there, run into the other room as I recommended, and start over the entire process. What I would recommend is sitting here and killing ads with Wither Horde, with your primaries, with grenades, until you see enough ammo on the ground to get you back up to max rocket launcher, and until you have your super back. I think it's always good to have your super during this encounter in case you need to panic pop, you know, like if you get rushed by supplicants or whatever. And this is the best time to just rack up on these kills, utilize your finder mods, and get rocket ammo to spawn. So that is going to be pretty much the entire guide. A lot of patience, not a lot of these, you know, huge game-changing tips. But I would, you know, recommend doing everything I said here. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them down below. If you are new to the channel and you'd like to see guides such as this in the future for triumphs or solo challenges or whatever, make sure you subscribe. But I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I will see you in the next one.